You know, it's days like today that I wish Queen didn't have copyright infringement on their classic hit "Another One Bites the Dust." Because that should really be President Donald Trump's theme song. "Another One Bites the Dust" should be Trump's theme song, because every day it seems another one bites the dust. What's up? This is Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Hopefully it won't be me. I'll be honest with you, my show already got canceled, so I have no empathy for Howard Stern. I have no empathy for Stephen Colbert. I have no empathy for these woke folk who went broke. Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. If only we could play, like doo-doo-doon, doon, doon, ch, another one. That's a great one. Doo-doo-doon, doon, doon, ch. That should be the theme song. Boom, 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 ch. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Yeah. Stern goes walking down the street, brim pulled way down low. Do-do-do-do. No, ain't no sound but the sound of his feet. Machine guns ready to go. They canceled his show. Oh, that's great. That's even better. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Sirius XM went broke. They decided they couldn't handle Howard Stern because he's woke. Do-do-do-doom. Boom. Sorry, I'm off in my own little world today. The news, you probably heard it. Howard Stern, after 20 years on Sirius XM, is out of a job. He's out of a gig. They're going to cancel the show because they can't afford him. Why? Well, because nobody wants to listen to that crap anymore. Look, Howard Stern, I'll be honest with you. When I lived in New York City growing up as a strapping young lad, back when I had hair on my head, I was in New York City and I was in college and I listened to Howard Stern because everybody listened to Howard Stern. It was back in the 90s. It was in his heyday. Anyone who was anybody was listening to the Howard Stern show, especially in New York. I had it on in my car when I was driving out to Long Island for my first job. I'm not going to tell you where it was because you're going to make fun of me. But anyway, all that kind of stuff was that was the big heyday. And he was an icon. He was an outlier. He was a guy that built up an amazing following. He was a guy that changed the radio landscape. And then he became like an old lady. He became like this old, tired, woke, leftist lesbian who decided instead of fighting against authority, he was going to placate it, and he was going to become the mouthpiece of it. And it was, it was it was crazy to watch his transformation from really, he used to be the renegade. I mean, the stuff he used to say, the stuff he used to do, and now he's out there and he's interviewing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And really, that was his downfall. When he decided to give in to the Democrat Party, when he decided to become the mouthpiece for the Joe Biden campaign and try to help Kamala Harris, which failed miserably, that's really and really it was before that. You know what it was? It was probably COVID. We'll get to all that here. We're going to get to all the Stern stuff here in just a minute. We also got some great news about Donald Trump. He's off the roof and he's making predictions about 2028, which we'll cover. But first, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you're watching us on Rumble or YouTube or X, wherever you happen to be, you got to make sure that you hit that subscribe button. You got to make sure you set the notifications because we want to make sure that whenever we have brand new content, you can find it and it actually finds you. If you're listening to the podcast page on Spotify or on iTunes, just hit notify and boom, the content will find you. The content will come to you. You don't even have to go search for it. It's really kind of amazing. That's the kind of technological world we live in today. But man, I got to tell you, Donald Trump is taking a victory lap with this Howard Stern show thing. And as well he should. Because what happened with Howard Stern is a direct result of his anti-Trump tirades. It's a direct result of him putting Donald Trump in his sights and aiming and firing over and over again. And now that Sirius XM takes a look at their intake and their output, now that they see that Howard Stern is much more expensive than he's actually worth, they're doing the right thing and they're pulling the plug on his show, following suit of CBS and Stephen Colbert. And now we can only think, wow, who's going to be next? Who's going to be the next one? Who's going to be the next big thing to be canceled? Is it going to be The View, finally, knock on wood? Is it going to be, I don't know, I don't even know who's left. The entire CNN network. They were talking about selling MSNBC. That hasn't happened yet. But it's really kind of fun. Also, as we tiptoe into today, there's a lot of talk about 2028, not just from the Donald Trump camp, but from the other side of the Republican aisle, namely the DeSantis camp. And Ron DeSantis has been doing a lot of high profile stuff, which has really put the spotlight back on him, at least here in the state of Florida. And I think that when we go into 2026, Here, there's going to be a big governor's race. Byron Donalds is already declared. He's already gotten the endorsement from President Donald Trump. But as we go into it, we're going to really start to see Ron DeSantis rising, and he's going to be making a big play. In fact, he already has. I'll play you some clips here in just a minute, which is very, very exciting. But man, the other piece of news, which I covered at great length in today's The 47 Daily Podcast, which if you don't listen to the 47dailypodcast.com, I don't even know what your problem is. The 47daily.com. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have somebody. I'm going on like a hiring spree. That's not true. I've hired like one person, but really, you know what I want to do is I want to find somebody who can make some cool graphics for me so that, it's because this is kind of basic stuff. The subscribe button's kind of basic. The 47 Daily kind of, but anyway, you get the gist. It gets the job done. And the 47 Daily Podcast today, we talked all about big balls. You remember Big Balls from the Doge team? 19 years old, computer in hand. He got access to everybody's social security numbers, walked into the Treasury Department, saved like $8 billion running an AI program, and everybody freaked out. And they were like, oh my God, Doge hired a kid named Big Balls and they gave him the keys to the Treasury. Well, no one, we're none the worse for wear. Actually, that's not true. Elon Musk got beat up by Scott Bessent, and Big Balls got beat up by some kids in DC. This is crazy, man. This whole Big Balls story is nuts. Oh, I mean, sorry. Pardon me. I just don't know. I don't know. I didn't mean that. Was total. Sometimes I say something and it seems like I planned it out. I don't plan nothing. I got no script. There's no notes. There's nothing here but my mind and my mouth. And sometimes they don't always. But anyway, this whole Big Ball story is nuts. And we'll get into that too here in due time, because like I said, we got a lot to talk about and very little time to cover it all. But before we get into it, before we jump into the nitty gritty, before we get into all of the information that you're here to know about, before we really start saving the Republic, I want to save you a little bit of money, because this is very exciting. Our good friends at CBD Distillery, good friends of Marquez Saves the Republic, their VIP sale is on right now. Wait, what happened? My screen just went blank. And what they're offering is where am I? What happened? They're offering 50% off up to everything in their store. For a few days only, you can save up to 50% off of everything when you use coupon code RUMBLE, RUMBLE, at cbddistillery.com. Better sleep, less stress, pain relief, after exercise, whatever sounds good to you, CBD from CBD Distillery can help you get it. And like I said, now's the best time, because 50% off, up to 50% off of everything on their website during this VIP sale. Here's some of their most popular products. They've got the CBD gummies, the Relief Stick, which is very popular. I want to show you this one, because this one's really great. It's the pet tincture. And I don't know if you have pets, but here in Florida, you know what happens is here it is. There's a lot of fireworks and lightning and stuff, and the pets get stressed, and people love to give their pets all natural, healthy tinctures of CBD. And what it does is it keeps them healthy. It keeps them happy. It keeps them calm. And what's better than a happy, healthy, calm dog? And like I said, you could try it out for up to 50% off. Shop any of these great products. You can check out their website. You can see all these. Here's all their testimonials. Here's what all about the company. They're really amazing. Dr. Brian Green. You can read anything you want. And of course, like I said, 50% off of everything up to when you use coupon code RUMBLE. Go to cbddistillery.com. Not available in Idaho, Iowa, or South Dakota. Yeah, they got to get those laws in Iowa, Idaho, and South Dakota. But anywhere else, just use coupon code RUMBLE at cbddistillery.com. And we've conveniently placed that link and all that information in the description of this video so you can check it out. But first, let's check out Big Balls, shall we? Big Balls, a.k.a. what's his name? I forget. His name is, wait, I had his name here just a minute ago. It's Edward, I believe, right? Constantine or Constor. Hold on. Let's get the Big Balls real name. Like I told you, I don't write anything. I don't prepare anything. Edward Korestein. He's 19 years old. Edward Korestein. And this kid is really, it's amazing how much, like, we thought his 15 minutes of fame was over after the whole Doge team, after Elon Musk left the government, after they rearranged people and moved them to different departments after the hubbub with the Treasury Department. But Big Balls, this kid is still making waves. And yesterday at 3 a.m., suppose as the story goes, at 3 a.m., he was out and about and he saw a woman getting attacked. It was an attempted carjacking, apparently. And this attempted carjacking was a bunch of youths. Donald Trump said it was a street gang in D.C., which there are many of those. And look at this. Big Balls intervened. He saw this woman getting attacked. He intervened. He got, bloodied himself. He's all beat up. There's blood on his chest. There's blood on his legs. I don't know if this is all his blood. I don't know if it's someone else's. It could be the woman's blood. Who knows? Maybe he got a couple swings at some of these thugs. But that's him there when he's not bloody. That's him working for Doge, working for the Treasury Department. And this was him the other night when he intervened. 19 years old, this kid just sees some woman getting attacked and he jumps into the rescue, which is incredible. That's what you want. That's what you want in an employee. And I'm going to be honest with you, really living up to his name, isn't he? That's a kid who's living up to his name. And President Donald Trump posted about him on his Truth Social. He said, crime in Washington, D.C. is totally out of control. Local youths and gang members, some only 14, 15, and 16, are randomly attacking, mugging, maiming, shooting citizens at the same time knowing that they will almost immediately be released because they're juveniles. They're not afraid of law enforcement because they know nothing ever happens to them, but it's going to happen now. Donald Trump says the law in D.C. must be changed to prosecute these minors as adults and lock them up for a long time, starting at age 14. The most recent victim was beaten mercilessly by local thugs. Washington, D.C. must be safe, clean, and beautiful for all Americans, and importantly, for the world to see. If D.C. doesn't get its act together and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run this city how it should be run. Put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. Perhaps it should have been done a long time ago. Then this incredible young man and so many others would not have had to go through the horrors of violent crime. If this continues, I'm going to exert my powers and federalize this city. Make America great again. President Donald Trump announcing that if D.C. doesn't get their act together, if Mayor Bowser doesn't get her act together, if they can't stop the crime, if they can't start prosecuting criminals the way they should be, if they can't take these juvenile gangs and put them in jail and lock them up and let them know this is not the way. This is not the way. The Mandalorian would not be happy. If they can't do that, then Donald Trump's going to federalize the city. He's going to take over the district, which he has the right to and really the responsibility to, because Washington, D.C. is the hub of our government. There are so many federal employees, so many federal contractors, so many American citizens, so many visitors from all over the world. You have to, as the president of the United States, as the chief executive, as the chief law and order executive in the United States of America, you have to protect the government. And that means protecting the city where the government is. And if the mayor can't do it, and if the attorney general or the district attorneys can't do it, and if the localized elected officials can't do it, Donald Trump's going to he's going to federalize it, and he's going to run it the way that it should be run. And he's going to cut crime out the way Giuliani cut it out in New York City, I imagine. In fact, maybe he'll bring in Rudy Giuliani to run. You know who he's already brought in is Judge Jeanine Pirro. And man, if I were a 14-year-old gang member in Washington, D.C., I'd be petrified of Judge Jeanine.
Hi everyone, it's Judge Jeanine. In case you don't know or recognize the background, I'm at the White House. I just met with the president. We talked about crime in the nation's capital. We talked about fighting crime, and the president is very serious about making sure that as the prosecutor here, that we not only fight crime with a vengeance, but make sure that there are consequences. Make sure that we protect the victims and we make the criminals accountable. And that's the mission of the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. Not just in district court, but in all the courts, the superior courts. Our job is to get guns off the street, drugs off the street, take care of those individuals who are threatening, carjacking other people, and make this city safe and clean again. And that's just what we're going to do. And if you don't buy into it, you're going to have to deal with us.
Yeah, and she looks cute, and she looks innocent. She's in her little like red, white, and blue, or whatever. I guess white and blue. But you know, she's a tough cookie. She's a tough nut to crack, and you're not gonna let anything. And she doesn't care. She'll send anybody up the river for a very, very, very long time, especially since she's working with Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump federalizes D.C., forget about it. It's gonna be almost immediately the safest place in the country. I'm not even joking. If Donald Trump and Judge Jeanine Pirro take over Washington, D.C., and if Donald Trump federalizes it and sends in the troops or whatever he has to do, if you've got Donald Trump running D.C. the way that Giuliani ran New York, the way that effective mayors and leaders run effective cities, if he's got Judge Jeanine Pirro throwing everyone in jail for like jaywalking, I mean, in record time, it's going to be the safest city in the entire country, and everybody's going to want to go there, which is great because I'm running for office and I'm going to be spending a lot of time there, and I want to make sure that it's safe. But Donald, and look, and he mentioned it too. It's not just a quirky post. He mentioned it. He put it out there in the ether when he was at the Olympics. He was signing an executive order to ratify or to create the executive task force for the Olympics, and he mentioned it there too.
By the way, I have to say that somebody from Doge was very badly hurt last night. You saw that. A young man who was beat up by a bunch of thugs in D.C. And either they're going to straighten their act out in the terms of government and in terms of protection, or we're going to have to federalize and run it the way it's supposed to be run.
I mean, that's not, he's basically putting them on notice there. He's saying, look, he didn't put a time frame on it, but it's going to happen. If this crime doesn't go down in D.C., if another, and this isn't the first time we saw, who was the representative that got carjacked? You know, there was a congressperson got carjacked in D.C., not the bad part of D.C., but like, you know, the good part of D.C., really the downtown area. The thugs and the criminals and the gang members, they don't care anymore, especially these juveniles. They know they're going to get away with it. So instead of just hanging out, committing crime in the hood, where do they go? They go downtown to the Tidal Basin. They go downtown to the Capitol building. They're hanging out where all the ritzy stock trading Congress people are, so they can jack a nice car. They know that all the Mercedes Benzes and the Navigators are going to be down there. They know that that's where all of the BMWs roll in. So that's where they're going to jack their vehicles, and they don't care because if they get caught, they're going to get off. And so that's why it's become such a problem. And now we've got Donald Trump saying, I'll just take over the city. I'll just run the city the way I do the government. I'll just run this city, and it'll be one of the safest places in the entire. Maybe that's what he was doing on the roof yesterday. Remember, he was on the roof yesterday, and he was like, and everyone's like, what are you doing on the roof? Maybe he was looking around going, I'm trying to look for the thugs that Judge Janine's going to put in prison.
There's no Trump-like construction, Trump, Jillian, and he is up on the roof.
Bill, Mr. President, what are you doing up there?
I'm looking for street gangs.
What are you building?
I'm trying to find the guy who beat up Big Balls. That's what I would have said. I would have been like, I'm looking for the guy who beat up Big Balls. Big Balls got badly beat. Nobody can beat Big Balls. This is all horrible. This has just turned into a really salacious story. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on to something else. Speaking of salacious, let's talk a little bit about Howard Stern, shall we? Howard Stern canceled. Thank God. Good riddance. Bye-bye. Whoever, by the way, wrote this headline, which I love. A bye-bye buoy is the headline in the U.S. Sun. The Howard Stern Show to be canceled after nearly 20 years on Sirius XM as $100 million contract is up later this year. First of all, a $100 million contract for what Howard Stern does is ridiculous, but I'm a capitalist, so if you can do it, if you can convince somebody you're worth all that money for doing whatever it is you do, have at it. The iconic Howard Stern Show on Sirius XM is set to be canceled after a stunning 20-year run. Sources exclusively told the U.S. Sun. Stern, 71, who has had a megabucks contract for decades at the subscription satellite radio provider, will likely cut some sort of deal for Sirius to cut his catalog upon his exit, sources said, because he doesn't need it. What's he going to do with it? Sirius will buy him out, basically. They're not going to give him $100 million more. He'd probably want more because, after you get a $100 million contract, you have to keep going up. That's the thing. There comes a point where you've basically like outspent your worth. So, for example, he got to Sirius and I think his first contract was something like 25 or 50 million. And he basically saved Sirius XM. I mean, let's not, we'll call it like we see it. When he got to Sirius XM, he put that station on the map. And he left CBS radio, he went to satellite radio, and he made satellite radio what it is. He brought in the subscribers. They didn't come because they wanted satellite-free radio. They came because they wanted to hear Howard Stern. And they wanted to hear him cuss, which he could do, because again, it wasn't FCC regulated. And after I think it was like 10 years, I don't know what his first contract was, but then he signed a $100 million deal, and that's coming to an end now. So Next best thing is he's going to go in. He's going to be like, all right, well, now I want 150. And they're going to be like, all right, well, now we want you to leave. You're 71. You're old. You're woke. Nobody listens to you anymore. You've gotten way too political. In fact, that's the problem. That's the real issue with Howard Stern. It's not that he's not funny anymore. It's not that he's old. It's not that they don't want to pay him the money. It's that he's gone woke. He went woke, and now Sirius is going broke. And they're not going to let him destroy their network the way Stephen Colbert is destroying CBS. They're not going to let him destroy their satellite radio network the way that The View is destroying ABC, or George Snuffleupagus is destroying ABC, or NPR destroyed themselves. Look, also, let's be honest. The USAID funding got cut, and it seems like maybe Sirius was getting some money from the government to keep Howard Stern on the air as well, because, well, Howard Stern was good to the former administration. How good was he? I'm glad you asked. Here is Howard Stern interviewing Joe Biden in one of the most cringeworthy, one of the most softball, one of the most ridiculously horrible interviews. I mean, this shouldn't, I couldn't even believe. First of all, he's wearing a tie, which I know it's the president of the United States, but you're Howard Stern. He's wearing a tie. And then he's basically just feeding pablum. Joe Biden can't speak for himself, by the way. So Howard Stern is just speaking on his behalf. And it's just a syrupy pablum false narrative about what an amazing leader Joe Biden is. And it's sickening. And it's all a lie too. And this is the jumping of the shark for Howard Stern.
Not only were you a star football player, but you were a lifeguard.
Okay, first of all, Joe Biden was never a star football player. I'm not even gonna. Well, we've debunked that theory. He was never a star football player. He was a lifeguard, but he almost. Well, you know what? We'll just let it play.
Not only were you a star football player, but you were a lifeguard. I mean, you really and you were the only white guy who was lifeguarding in this black community, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you were the one guy.
I was.
Your family is pretty, again, this goes to my point about, the president is the father of our country. That's something we all say.
No, we don't say that. Okay, that's not something we all say, by the way. George Washington was the father of our country. We don't say, nobody says the president is the father of the country. We said we had our founding fathers. George Washington was the father of the country, but it's not like the next president. I know no one ever called Obama the father of the country. Absolutely not. I would have smacked them. If anyone looked at me and said, Obama's your father, I'd have been like, I'd have taken my Bible and I would have smacked them across the head. But no one, first of all, anyway, this whole clip just gets me a little, ugh.
And I think your family is so extraordinary.
I mean, come on. This guy was once the anti-establishment, anti-authority, outlier who didn't give a crap about anybody, who told it like it is, who said whatever was on his mind, who didn't care who he was offending. And now he's sitting there in a tie saying Joe Biden is the father of our country and that his family is incredible. His family? Hunter Biden?
Because of the way they've conducted themselves and how they are with you, that I feel you have a lot to give to the presidency. These are my feelings. It's pretty amazing family. And I'm proud of it. I submit for your approval that when you have a loving family like that, you got a lot to give because you get so much from them.
I mean, okay. All he got from his family was money, and all his family got from him was money. And I think Hunter got some Russian hookers and a whole lot of crack. But this is the, and the problem is I don't think anyone was buying this. Like Howard Stern, he used to be the guy that would ask the question that nobody else wanted to ask, right? Like it's a total 180. And this is the downfall. This is when I think Sirius looked at this and said, there's no way we are actually ever going to hire this guy again. There's no way we're going to give this guy a dime after his contract is over, because Howard Stern would ask the questions in the old days. Like he would be the guy. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember when Jay Leno had, who's the British guy that slept with the prostitute in the car and got Hugh Grant? Jay Leno had Hugh Grant on the show like weeks after he got busted with the hooker. And Hugh Grant sat down and Jay Leno looked at him and said, so what the hell were you thinking? That was the first question. That's what Howard Stern would have asked. And then Howard Stern would have asked, was she hot? How much did she spend? Did she cost you? What did she do to you? Oh yeah, tell us all about it. That would have been his thing. Now he's out there lying about how Joe Biden has an amazing family, a loving family. I mean, it's sickening. It's really what you're watching here in this clip, what you're watching here in this interview with Joe Biden is the downfall of an American broadcast icon. It's suicide. He's committing suicide live on Sirius XM.
Kind of leader I love, because we're lucky to have you in the Oval Office and serving as the father of the country. Because if you're a good father to your family, which you are, I know you'd be a good father to the country. And I want to thank you for providing a calming influence, an organized administration post-COVID, getting that vaccine out, getting NATO, getting us to feel comfortable, standing up to Putin.
I don't know what any of that means. Getting NATO. What does he mean? You got NATO? Who got it? Joe Biden? First of all, Joe Biden's sitting there, has no idea what's going on. Joe Biden doesn't know if he's supposed to talk, if he's supposed to listen. Joe Biden's just sitting there in his Depends, hoping that he doesn't have an accident and leak all over the studio. Joe Biden probably has no idea. He's probably like, when did Cher's voice get so low? He has no idea what's happening at the moment. And here's Howard Stern, and Howard Stern's talking about, you got the vaccine out. First of all, that's not true. Donald Trump's the one that got the vaccine out. Donald Trump was the one, Operation Warp Speed. That wasn't Biden, that was Trump. Joe Biden had nothing to do with getting the vaccine out. Joe Biden tried to force you to take the vaccine after it was out, but he had nothing to do with getting it out. I mean, this is really incredible. Howard Stern goes on to say, you did NATO, or you got NATO. I don't know what that, NATO's been around forever. Joe Biden just sitting there going, oh, you do the talking because I can barely talk.
I don't know what people are looking for in a president, or maybe it's that people don't feel like they're getting enough or something. I don't know what it is, but I'll give you your greatest hits. The lowest uninsured rate in history. 4 out of 5 Americans are covered for less than $10 a month. Knocking off a few ISIS leaders, cutting the emissions in half. I mean, you've always been an environmentalist.
I mean, this is, by the way, him reading. And again, with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and we learned all this during the Kamala Harris campaign, you don't get to interview these people. You get to read the pre-written questions by their communications department. Jen Psaki sends the questions out and says, here's what you're going to say. Here's what you're going to ask. And they send another list saying, you are not going to ask any of these questions. And that's what Howard Stern is doing, which Howard Stern would never have agreed to in the old days. Howard Stern would never have said anything. He would have been like, nothing's off limits, or you're not stepping foot in the studio. In fact, Joe Rogan, who told Kamala Harris, look, you can come on my show, but you don't get the questions beforehand. And he even Joe Rogan went so far as to say, look, I'll even come to DC. I will travel to you. That's fine. Typically, I don't leave my studio. Typically, this is where I do the show. But if you don't want to come to Austin, even though Donald Trump's coming to Austin for 3 hours, even though Donald Trump left a rally in Michigan waiting so that he could go to Austin and talk to Joe Rogan. If you don't want to come to Austin, that's fine. I'll come to Washington, D.C. I'll go where you are. I'll give you an hour, even though Donald Trump did 3. But I'm not letting you pick the questions, and I'm not telling you what I'm asking you beforehand. We're going to have a conversation. And they said no. Howard Stern, on the other hand, Kamala Harris's people are like, Howard, we want Kamala on because she's the new Joe Biden, and we've got to make sure that she's doing great. And so can you have her on the show? And here are the questions you can ask her. And here's what you can say about her, but you can't say anything else. And he goes, sure. Here's the most sickening part of his interview with Kamala Harris. Well, there was a lot of them. Here's one of the most sickening parts.
To me, you're the law and order candidate. And yet they try to paint you like you're some leftist who I don't know, who wants to have people running through the streets committing crimes. You were a prosecutor.
I have put a lot of people in jail.
Yeah, and then she bailed him out too. That's the thing about Kamala Harris. She's not the law and order candidate. Donald Trump is the law and order candidate. How do we know that? Well, because we have law and we have order in this country. And the Democrats, Kamala Harris, all the rest of them, they're angry about it. Donald Trump's the law and order candidate because he took illegal criminal thug aliens and he sent them to El Salvador. And what did the Democrats do? What did Kamala's buddies in Congress do? They flew down to El Salvador, brought the guy back. Said, no, we don't want this criminal thug alien in jail. That's not law and order. Actually, it is. But Kamala Harris, during the BLM riots, during all the other stuff, during the Summer of Love in Seattle, during the George Floyd issues that were going on in Minneapolis, Kamala Harris paid out of her own pocket for these criminals who were arrested, these agitators, these George Soros funded agitators, to get out of jail. She bailed them out of jail, her and LeBron. And what happened was they would go break a window. They would go light a police car on fire. They would go throw a rock at somebody. They would break some kind. They would get arrested. They'd be thrown in the paddy wagon. They'd be taken downtown. They'd be booked and charged and mugshotted and fingerprinted. And Kamala Harris would roll in and LeBron James would roll in and they'd post their bail and they'd say, all right, go out and do it again. And these people would leave. And would they go home and shower? No. Would they go home and call an attorney? They'd go right back out to the street, pick up another brick, and throw it right through another window. They'd leave jail, courtesy of Kamala Harris, courtesy of LeBron James, courtesy of a lot of other celebrities who helped them, and they'd go back out and they'd pick up exactly where they left off with their fiery but mostly peaceful protests that weren't peaceful at all. They were just fiery. They would continue to jump up and down on cop cars and beat up people wearing MAGA hats and loot and riot. And Kamala Harris was part of all that. She was the one that made it possible. She was the person funding those operations. George Soros paid for them to get there. And then when they got arrested, Kamala Harris and her rich buddies paid to get them out so they could continue their mission. How's that the law and order candidate? How is that putting a lot of people behind bars? It doesn't matter if you put people behind bars. What matters is if you take the wrong people, the criminals, and you put them back on the street. And that's exactly what she did. Probably one of the worst things that Howard Stern ever said, though. And really, I think this is the moment that Howard Stern really kind of fell apart for everybody, was during the COVID crisis and the vaccinations. And he basically said, forget your freedom. F your freedom, I think is what he said.
We're going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated. F them, f their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
Yeah, F them, F their freedom. That's what Howard Stern said. F them, F their freedom. I want my freedom to live. And I think that's really when and he was talking, by the way, about Trump supporters. He was talking about Donald Trump supporters. Is exactly what he was saying. He's saying, look, these are people that are running around saying, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to get vaccinated. And he's like, F those people. I want my freedom to live. So take away their freedom to have body autonomy.
We're going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated. F them, f their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
Yeah. And that's when I think a lot of people realized Howard Stern was, a pansy. That's when the angry lesbian, I think, comparison started to really pop up. That's when people started calling Howard Stern an angry old lesbian. He's like the skinny version of Rosie O'Donnell is really what he is, with the glasses and the hair and everything else. If Rosie O'Donnell went on Ozempic, it would be basically Howard Stern. And their Trump derangement syndrome, it's exactly the same. In fact, one of the best clips I've seen floating around now is recently canceled Howard Stern talking to recently canceled Stephen Colbert. And the two of them having a conversation is just about Donald Trump, by the way, this is just too good. But listen to this.
Yeah, and I firmly believed that Donald did not want to run for president. I don't think it was serious. I don't think he wanted to be the president. I knew him. He had a great life at Mar-a-Lago. He was running around town. He played golf. He had a good time. And I remember, and I say this, the first time he said, I might run for president, he put out his first book. And I know some of the people involved in this, and they said, pretend like you're running for president and you'll sell a lot of books. And he did it, and it worked. Second book he put out, it was again, like 4 years later, he said, I might run for president. And again, he said, I'm selling books, and it helps sell books. Yeah. So what happened this time? He's on The Apprentice, the ratings were going down, and NBC was balking at giving him a raise. So what did he say? I'll run for president, I'll get a lot of press. And I really believe that this was a gimmick to get NBC to raise up his salary and to keep The Apprentice on. Well, and I would bet the farm on that.
By the way, he probably shouldn't bet the farm because if he loses the farm, there's not a lot left for Howard. There's not a lot left for Howard Stern. You know what? Maybe I have an idea for Howard Stern. Howard Stern is probably going to do what all of these other people do. He's going to do what Joy Reid does. He's going to do what Don Lemon does. He's going to do what Chris Cuomo does. And he's going to just start a podcast. And I'm all about that because, as you know, I love podcasts. But there's the right way to start a podcast and there's the not right way to start a podcast. And if you would like to know the right way to start a podcast, talk to somebody who has two and does it for a living. That person, namely, is me. And tonight, I am hosting a brand new, and this is a brand new, a lot of you have been to Podcast Profits Live before, but this is, I've neglected to tell you, tonight's edition is brand new. We have a brand new platform. It's not on Zoom. We're on a brand new platform with all kinds of interactive stuff. We're going to be having quizzes and questions and prizes and games, and it's going to be so much fun. And it's a much more interactive platform than than Zoom, which is barely interactive at all. It's also going to have new stories and new information about podcast success and how you can take a podcast and turn it into multiple different streams of income, because podcasting is the basis for all other social media income. And if you have a book like Donald Trump does, if you need a job like Howard Stern does, if you have a book or a job or a company and you're just looking to market the right way, podcasting is the right way to do it. And I will show you tonight how to launch a money-making podcast in just 1 hour. It's a 1 hour presentation, starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's absolutely free. Did I mention that? Probably not. You're going to learn all of this great stuff, and all you have to do is register your seat. There's a little button on the website that says Save My Spot. You don't need to pay. It's all free of charge, 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight, Wednesday, April the 6th, Podcast Profits Live. And this is an all-new version. If you've seen it before, you ain't seen nothing yet. I would recommend, if you've been there before, come again, because this one is going to be the best one. It gets better every single time we do it, and I'm super excited about tonight's. I think it's going to blow the doors off of pretty much everything else that's on. And if you want to learn a podcast, forget about it. There's only one place to go, Podcast Profits Live. The link is podcastprofitspro.com. So if you're listening to the podcast and you want to swing by, podcastprofitspro.com, or if you're watching us right now on YouTube or Rumble, there's a link in the description of this video. You can click on that link and you can register and you can join us tonight. We're very, very excited. So, speaking of being excited, President Donald Trump was asked a question by Peter Doocy yesterday, and it was about J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and who's going to run for president in 2028. 2020, Donald Trump, he's already announced he's not going to run again. The whole Trump 2028 thing was a great way to sell some hats. I bought one. It was a great way to get people talking. It was a great way to garner attention. But at the end of the day, I think Donald Trump realizes that 2 terms is enough. And there's that whole constitutional thing that he's got to look at. And Steve Bannon's got some ideas up his sleeve. But Donald Trump said, I'm not going to run again. So Peter Doocy said, who is the heir apparent for MAGA? And here's what President Donald Trump said.
You got off the roof all right?
Yeah.
You said this morning that you probably won't be running for a 3rd term. This weekend, Secretary of State Rubio said that he thought J.D. Vance would be a great nominee. You could clear the entire Republican field right now. Do you agree that the heir apparent to MAGA is J.D. Vance?
Well, I think most likely, in all fairness, he's the vice president. I think Marco is also somebody that maybe would get together with J.D. in some form. I also think we have incredible people, some of the people on the stage right here. So it's too early, obviously, to talk about it, but certainly he's doing a great job, and he would be probably favored at this point.
Look at that. I think, is J.D. Vance the heir apparent? He goes, well, I think so. I think he is, because he's doing a great job, and he's the vice president. And Donald Trump says, look, J.D. Vance, yeah, he's the logical choice. He's vice president. He's already second in line for the job. He's doing a great job. And then he throws in there, and Marco Rubio, I could see him getting together with J.D. Vance in some capacity. Well, there's only really one way to entertain that comment. If J.D. Vance is the most likely choice to be vice president, and you want Marco Rubio to get involved with him in some capacity, I'm guessing that would be as a running mate. I'm guessing we're talking Vance Rubio 2028 is where Donald Trump sees this. Vance Rubio 2028 to move MAGA into the future. And with Donald Trump giving his pseudo blessing there, or at least piecing it together in that short answer to that question that Peter Doocy had, he's now put that out there. He's put it into everyone's mind. Everyone on Twitter yesterday, everyone on X yesterday, everyone on social media. I posted like 8 times myself. Donald Trump pumps Vance Rubio for 2028. He didn't really, but he also did. He said, I think that JD Vance is the obvious choice because he's vice president. And I think Marco Rubio is doing a great job. And if he were to get together with JD, and he goes, and then there's other people here on the stage, which, by the way, everybody else on that stage when Donald Trump said that said, well, I guess it's JD Vance and Marco Rubio. I guess that's it, which makes perfect sense because when you're vice president of the United States of America, as JD Vance is, there's really only one other job that tops that, and it's president of the United States. It's the job you've been kind of in training for sometimes 8 years, sometimes 4 years. Doesn't mean you can do it, as Joe Biden will be. I mean, Joe Biden's perfect. Joe Biden was vice president for 8 years. He had no idea how to be president. Luckily, they had his auto pen to handle most of the tough, difficult tasks for him. But JD Vance, he's right there. He's in every cabinet meeting. He's out there giving speeches. He's part of every meet. We saw him go toe to toe with Zelensky. We saw him go toe to toe with Keir Starmer. He's part of the major decisions. And Donald Trump takes him along wherever he goes because he knows that JD Vance is probably the most logical choice to be president after he's gone. And Marco Rubio is Secretary of State. Now, Secretary of State, most people would argue, is the highest ranking cabinet position. I would argue that. There's no real ranking in the cabinet, like no real ranking. There's like the unofficial ranking, but Secretary of State, and I guess you could say there's the line of succession, right? But Secretary of State, Treasury Secretary, Secretary of Defense, those are like the big three, you know? No one's like, well, housing and urban development, there's only one way to go. There's only one place to go after that. No one's like, well, you're as Secretary of Agriculture. I mean, don't get me wrong. Our current Secretary of Brooke Rollins is doing a fantastic job. However, it's not like that's the natural stepping stone to president. Hold on, let me just Google something quickly. Yeah. But anyway, but Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Treasury, those are all, in fact, here it is. So I lied. There is kind of a hierarchy because of the presidential line of succession. So the presidential line of succession works like this. You have the vice president. So God forbid something happened to President Trump, JD Vance becomes the president. And then God forbid we have another vacancy. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, becomes president. We know that. Then it's the president pro tempore of the Senate. Then it's the Secretary of State is fourth. So really, Marco Rubio right now is fifth in line to the president. Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, is after him. And then Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is after that. And then Pam Bondi. Then it goes to Interior, which is Doug Burgum. Agriculture, which is, look at that. Look at that. Brooke Rollins she's in the top 10. She beats out Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce. Secretary of Labor, which is, what's her name? Who's the secretary? Or no, what's his name? The Secretary of Labor is Kelly Loeffler? No, it's the other one. Secretary of Health and Human Services is RFK Jr. Wow, look at that. He's 12th. So really, if there was some massive attack or some horrible accident, RFK Jr. could actually be president of the United States. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, and then look, Secretary of Homeland Security is the last. Hopefully we don't need any of this. But that's where it is. So yes, I guess technically Secretary of State is the highest ranking position in the cabinet, followed by Treasury and Defense. So the Secretary of State, the only jobs really that trump that, according to our Speaker of the House, which he doesn't want to be, and Vice President. So it makes 1,000% that JD Vance's, it makes 1,000% sense that JD Vance's next job would be president and Marco Rubio's next job would be vice president or running on that ticket. But there's another faction of the party who is like, not so fast, JD Vance / Marco Rubio, not so fast, Donald Trump. There's other people in the Republican Party who also have their eye on the prize, who have their eye on the top prize, who want the White House to be theirs and no one else's. And one of those people is Ron DeSantis, even though he's not publicly saying it, even though he hasn't done the due diligence yet that we know of. He is out there kind of, I don't want to say pseudo campaigning or silently campaigning, but he's doing like an under the radar campaign. And he's doing things like, for example, putting together Alligator Alcatraz and inviting President Donald Trump down for a very, very high profile photo op. He's doing things like going out and giving speeches and heralding all of his accomplishments and the things that are going on in Florida, like, for example, the war on woke that he's declaring victory over.
We have also successfully waged a war and defeated the woke mind virus in the state of Florida. We are the first state to eliminate DEI from our public university system. We were the state responsible for nuking ESG in the pensions and in the businesses. We eliminated critical race theory, first in the country to do that in our K through 12 education. And we stopped the brutal practice of doing sex change operations on kids. It was wrong then when we did it. It's wrong now, and we were right then when we did it.
Yeah, and that's one of the many accomplishments. He went on, though. He talked about how Florida's, probably the biggest, greatest accomplishment that Ron DeSantis has is the overwhelming number of new Republicans that are here, whether they moved here or whether they switched parties when they were living here.
I just leave you with this thought. We're here. We've got a 1.3 million registration advantage. You have every single statewide office has a Republican. We have almost a 3-to-1 majority in the Florida House. We have, almost almost 2/3 majority, more than 2/3 in the Florida Senate. We've got 20 Republicans in our congressional delegation. Now, I did have to veto the legislature's map, and so I get this one, but be that as it may. And so you have that. So you can even see, and then I think in the counties, I think we won 62 of 67 counties, including Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, all this stuff. So you could sit here and be like, yep, we've done it. And my message is just don't get high on your own supply. You're only as good as what you're doing for people going forward. There's nothing permanent in politics. People are up, and then they say, oh, there's going to be Republican forever. And then all of a sudden, things shift, and other people can do. I don't think the threat to the Republican Party of Florida right now is as much that the Democrats are going to get their act together than that we, as Republicans, or some Republicans, fumble the ball.
And that is exactly the threat to the Republican Party. Republicans fumbling the ball. That is exactly the threat to the Republican majorities here in the state of Florida, in other states, in the House of Representatives, which is what we're watching in Texas. It's Republicans fumbling the ball. Bitter infighting, keeping their eye off the prize, their own personal, this is a big one too. When Republicans look at their own personal benefits, or when they look at their office as a way to personally benefit themselves and not execute the agenda that benefits most Americans and makes America great again, that's when you really have problems. And Ron DeSantis spoke to that too.
We should not have these congressmen doing this insider trading where they're making massive windfalls. And Pelosi may be the queen of it, but she's not the only one. So they need to clean that up.
Yeah, by the way, I am right there. I am right there with Ron DeSantis. And I know who he's talking about. I've heard a lot of people say, when Ron DeSantis said that, listen to it one more time.
We should not have these congressmen doing this insider trading where they're making massive windfalls. And Pelosi may be the queen of it, but she's not the only one. So they need to clean that up.
Yeah, Pelosi may be the queen of it, but she's not the only one. A lot of people were saying when he said that, he was taking a dig at Byron Donalds. A lot of people said when he said that, he was taking a dig at Byron Donalds. Why Byron Donalds? Well, because Byron Donalds may be running for governor, and the rumor has it that his wife, First Lady of the state of Florida, Kaye DeSantis, also wants to run for governor, and some polls have her in a pretty solid position to become the next governor, and so she would need to beat out Byron Donalds. And so by taking a dig at Byron Donalds, without taking a dig at Byron Donalds, by mentioning the congressional stock trading and the insider trading that's going on both sides of the aisle, that a lot of people said he's taking a dig at Byron Donalds. Personally, I think he was going after John Rutherford from Florida's 5th District. John Rutherford, who, by the way, I am working diligently to primary on August 18, 2026. Mark Kaye for Congress is going after John Rutherford because he's the guy that Ron DeSantis just described to a T. Forget the fact that John Rutherford has an F An F when it comes to voting on conservative bills in Congress. Forget the fact that he's more liberal than Liz Cheney. Forget the fact that he's voted for billions of dollars to be sent to Ukraine without any kind of oversight. Forget the fact that he's voted to keep our servicemen and women from keeping loaded guns in their own homes for their own protection. Forget the fact that he's voted for using your taxpayer dollars to fund transgender surgeries and abortions. Forget the fact that this guy claims to be a Republican but isn't. He's also a notorious inside trader, and he uses the information he gets from his position on the Oversight Committee to make millions of dollars for himself, and then he uses his position on the Ethics Committee to keep from getting in trouble for all of those inside trades. And that's not just me. I'm not just saying, I mean, look, you could say, no, he's a good guy. But Matt Gaetz, who worked with John Rutherford in the Congress and had access to John Rutherford and other people in the Congress, Matt Gaetz did an entire investigation with the Blaze. And, well, here, I'll just have him tell you.
So one of the committees where people have a lot of information is the Appropriations Committee, because they can view almost any vector of government funding. And so, this is Mr. Rutherford's office. He's on the Ethics Committee and the Appropriations Committee. 152 stock trades. Stocks go through the roof. And, actually bought Raytheon stock the day that Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if every American could make money off of war.
Yeah, imagine if every American, we just want war all the time. You know who's not making money off of war? People who don't want war. You know who's not making, that's what, when you buy Raytheon stock, the day that Russia invades Ukraine, odds are you're not looking for a quick end to the war. You're looking for a long, prolonged attack. You're looking for a war that goes on for years and years and years. So what are you going to do? You're going to vote to send Ukraine money. Why? Well, because you know that money that you send to Ukraine is going to Raytheon, and you own Raytheon stock. So guess what? It's going to go up and you're going to get rich. That's what Ron DeSantis is talking about. That's what Nancy Pelosi did. That's what a couple of other people in Congress are doing. That's what John Rutherford was doing. And when he got hit with those 152 violations, poof, they disappeared because he sits on the Ethics Committee. Not for long, bub. We're coming after him. We're going to get some real non-criminal, non-corrupt politicians in there. We want somebody in Florida's 5th District who represents Florida's 5th District and not their stock account. We want somebody who's not in it for E-Trade, but who's in it for all trade, and who's really, really willing to go to Washington, D.C. and vote no on the bad bills and yes on the good ones. And that's not the guy we have. That's not John Rutherford. It's Mark Kaye, at least for Florida's 5th Congressional District. And if you live in Florida's 5th Congressional District, we definitely need your vote. We definitely need your financial support. We'd love for you to come out to our big rally on August 18th at Sneakers. But we also, if you live anywhere, I mean, this is a federal position. As part of the U.S. House of Representatives, I will be representing everybody in the U.S. to some extent with my vote. So wherever you are, if you want a combative, truly conservative representative in there fighting for you against the lunatics on the left, against the rhinos on the right, fighting for you to keep your money, to keep government out of your way, to make sure that you're able to sleep at night knowing that your representative is representing you and not just trying to figure out what the next stock is going to be that explodes because of some government contracts. If you want all of that, please help us out. MarkKforCongress.com is the website address. MarkKforCongress.com is the website address where you can make a donation of any kind, by the way. I'll play Bernie Sanders. We'll take $1, $5. I'd love $3,500, which is the maximum amount allowed by the FEC, but we'll settle for $5, $50, whatever you can donate. Again, every little bit helps, and we are up against it because, yes, the guy that we're running against is probably seems like he's done with the job, seems like he's unenthusiastic, seems like he's getting on there in years. Nobody really seems to be approving of the job he's done. He's not really a Republican. The truth is coming out about him, too. We're spewing the truth about this guy every single day because it's important that you audit your local candidates. And I think even though it's an uphill battle, even though it's a climb, we got some hiking shoes and some pickaxes, and we're ready to go. We just need your help. MarkKforCongress.com. MarkKforCongress.com is the website. Like I said, anything at all that you can do to help us, we would love your help. By the way, I forgot to read this, and we should totally read it because I don't want to end the show without you hearing what Donald Trump had to say about Howard Stern, because Donald Trump commented on Howard Stern. Donald Trump is my favorite president because not only does he comment on politics, but he comments on, pop culture and the demise of others. This is one of the best descriptions of Howard Stern ever. Beta male. Is there any deeper insult in this day and age for a guy than beta male? Is there any, and I'm not, look, this could be an Andrew Tate thing, and I realize that's 2 shows in a row where I've mentioned Andrew Tate. This could be an Andrew Tate thing. This could be like a Tim Walz thing. But is there any deeper, more just, oh no, you didn't insult for a male than calling them a beta male? I don't think so. Beta male Howard Stern made a fool of himself on his low-rated radio show when he quote-unquote interviewed Lion Kamala Harris and hit her with so many softball questions that even she was embarrassed. He looked like a real fool, working so hard to make a totally incompetent and ill-equipped person look as good as possible, which wasn't very good. I dropped Howard a long time ago, like most others, and have since been credited with very good judgment. MAGA 2024. That was Donald Trump talking about that was him, by the way. I think that was him back in after the interview with Kamala. That wasn't today, but this is making the rounds again today because he called him a beta male. Which I love. It's just so good, isn't it? Isn't it just so good? I really hope The View's next. I hope The View is next, not because I care about The View or because I watch The View, not because I think The View has any kind of social impact or political impact, not because I think people are out there going, man, I really want to know what The View thinks about this. I don't think that's happening, but I just want to see what Donald Trump tweets or truths about Joy Behar. I want to see what he truths about all the other, about Whoopi Goldberg and Sonny Hotson. When they get canceled, I want to see what Donald Trump has to say about them. And you know it's coming because the money's drying up. USAID funding got dried up by Doge. Big Balls and Elon in the restroom took it all away. They shut down the USAID building. And now you've got Colbert off the air, Stern off the air. The View's got to be coming up next. Because woke is dead. Oh, but you know where woke wasn't dead? This was a little shocking to me. I was shocked when this happened yesterday at Donald Trump's press conference for the Olympics. Listen to this.
I also want to welcome the chair of the U.S. Olympic Committee, Gene Sykes. Gene, thank you. Thank you, Gene, very much. And thank him for recently banning men from competing in women's sports. That's a big deal. Thank you very much. It's amazing the way I don't hear any applause for that when everyone feels it. It's a 97, don't worry about it, Gene. That's a 97-3. It's not 80-20, it's 97-3. But nobody wants to clap. It's crazy. The United States will not let men steal trophies from women at the 2028 Olympics, so we appreciate the fairness. And
nobody wants that, and he's right about that. And he was right to call them out, too. And it wasn't the Nancy Pelosi kind of call out. It wasn't where he was like, that's an applause line. He wasn't looking for applause. He was legitimately shocked that he didn't get any. Nancy Pelosi was like, or Jeb Bush, please clap. Jeb Bush had to tell people, please clap. That's not what that was. Donald Trump was giving his speech. He said, by the way, thank you, Gene, for keeping men out of women's sports in the upcoming Olympics. And he wasn't looking for applause, but when he didn't get it, he was like, whoa, nobody still wants to clap for that? What is wrong with you people? That to me was, I was shocked. If you think that we've won the war on woke, I mean, we've won a lot of battles. Ron DeSantis did a great job here in Florida. He got the woke out of the schools. He got the DEI out of schools. We erased the woke mind virus. But listen to this one more time. This is Donald Trump talking about this. Donald Trump's talking about keeping men, biological men, out of women's sports, as boxing. Like, remember the one boxer just boom hit that woman, and she's like, I'm forfeiting. I can't be in here with a man. She had to give up all her training, give up her Olympic dreams, all of that, because there were men allowed to compete in the Olympics against women. Donald Trump saying, thank you for not allowing that, and nobody clapped.
I also want to welcome the chair of the U.S. Olympic Committee, Gene Sykes. Gene, thank you. Thank you, Gene, very much. And thank him for recently banning men from competing in women's sports. That's a big deal. Thank you very much. It's amazing the way I don't hear any applause for that when everyone feels it. It's a 97. Don't worry about it. That's a 97-3. It's not 80-20. It's 97-3. But nobody wants to clap. It's crazy. The United States will not let men steal trophies from women at the 2028 Olympics. So we appreciate the fairness. And
that is truly remarkable. I don't know why nobody. I don't know who's at this press conference. I don't know why they're not clapping. I would have thought that at a Donald Trump press conference about the Olympics, you'd have had a lot of people that are on his side. But it's look, we fight hard every day and we win a lot of these battles. And this country it's a 180 from where it was just a year ago today. It's a 180 from where we were with Joe Biden as president and Kamala Harris as vice president. It's a 180 from when woke folk ran the media and fired your favorite radio personalities because they were too conservative and they were too pro-Trump. It's a 180 from where we were when we had men competing in women's sports and people were taking the men's side and applauding them and cheering them on and giving them all kinds of awards. It's a 180 since then. But as you can see, there's still some fights that need to be fought and there's still some battles that need to be won. And that's why every single day we're right here together for Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Subscribe. Make sure that you're telling whatever platform you're on, whether it's Rumble, whether it's YouTube, whether it's X, whether it's Facebook. Make sure you're telling them, oh, yeah, I love Mark Kaye Saves the Republic and I want more of it. Make sure you're telling Spotify and iTunes and iHeart, wherever you happen to be listening to our podcast, yeah, deliver this podcast to me. Don't even ask me. Just send it my way. And speaking of podcasts, don't forget tonight, Podcast Profits Live. If you want to join us, there's a link in the description of this video, or you can go to podcastprofitspro.com, podcastprofitspro.com to sign up. It's absolutely free, and the education you're going to get is priceless. 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight, podcastprofitspro.com. In the meantime, look, we'll be back tomorrow because there's more information you need. There's more entertainment to give you. There's more inspiration that we're going to keep doling out. There's more empowerment. There's more enemies out there. As we've seen, there's still people that don't think the way we do, and we need to make sure that they never get control of this country ever again. And the people who do have control of this country that shouldn't have it, we need to make sure that they get gone as well. And that's what we do here every single day for at least an hour, sometimes more. And we need your help to do it. We need you to keep coming back. We need you to keep listening. We need you to keep sharing these messages with everyone you know. We need to keep growing our Patriot community. We need to keep training and keep our skills sharp, keep our knowledge intact. Make sure we know exactly who the enemy is, how they're coming for us, and how we can beat them. Because that's the only way that we will, in the end, at the end of the day, fight, and save the Republic. See you guys tonight for Podcast Profits Live. Go to podcastprofitspro.com and you can sign up. Again, it's free. Here's what we're going to go over: how to speak and grow rich with your own podcast, the easiest way to record and distribute your podcast for free, how to repurpose your podcast into a multimedia empire like I do, why you must have a podcast to succeed in the new golden age. It's really non-negotiable. If you don't have one, you got to get one, especially if you already have a business or you want to start a business. It's podcastprofitspro.com. The link is in the description of this video, 8 p.m. tonight. I will see you. Go register right. I'm ending the broadcast. Go register.